as quick and hard as we can to get bike share back and up and running in Bend. We have run up against a few out of our control issues that are delaying our process a little bit, but we are still on track to launch this summer, just probably not in July. The number one reason for that is that you all have probably read the articles about like car manufacturer and other technology that are affected by a chip shortage. And that's something that's affecting us for the controllers that we hope to put into these bikes that we're receiving out of Portland. They are delayed, and that they're delayed by 60 to 90 days than what they usually would be. So as of right now, we hope that if we can wrap up all the other work that we have to do on the ground, that we would receive those sometime in August, and then as soon as we have them, be ready to go. So to put that all in perspective, I wanted to keep this very on task and not get drifted away in too much storytelling like I can. So where we at is that we are finalizing the donation agreement with the city of Portland. That's in progress, and we hope that to be signed by next week. After that's signed, we will schedule to rent a big truck and drive up to Portland and pick up 100 bikes from them. Procurement and logistics at the city of Bend are in progress. We have figured out how we structure it, how we handle it. We are just evaluating some of the legal aspects of the risk management behind it to make sure that the agreement that we're working with Cascade Mobility is done to protect everybody involved. We hope to wrap that up by the end of this month. Again, then I already mentioned that, pick up the bikes, hopefully before the end of June. And then we are working on a contract with Mobility Cloud, which is the software and hardware provider for the controllers that actually go into the bicycles. And those, unfortunately, the agreement will do probably in early July. We have actually no clue yet when we can receive the controllers. We'll know more when we sign the agreement. And I'm just being upfront and transparent about it because they don't really know, based on that chip shortage, how long that will take. The agreement with Cascade Mobility should be done and completed in early July to mid-July. And we have our local partner agreements, meaning local bike shops that will do the maintenance for the bikes and all those kind of things on standby to be agreed on as soon as we have the Cascade Mobility agreement in place, which should be middle of July. Next slide, please. That said, we are actually want to take advantage of that little delay and feel that now it kind of like takes the pressure off us to like roll this out as quick as we can and really focus on the originally second phase of this project, of the bike share, which was really making sure that this is not just a tourist attraction, but becomes an equity-based mobility and transit option for underserved populations in Bend. And so there's a second project, which I just gonna inform you quickly about, which is a partnership between CET, City of Bend, and the MPO is part of this too, and OSU Cascades, which we call to develop a framework for urban mobility. So it's like a small project to support a lot of big projects within the TSP that really focuses on micromobility, alternative transportation options. And we're in the process of applying for a grant with ODOT for an innovation grant that we have already been promised that would actually pay for development of this plan. And so bike share is a big part of that plan to really say, this will be our first project that we're doing as part of this urban mobility framework to really explore what alternative small scale transportation options will actually work in Bend and can serve people that currently don't have access to transit. So we're really excited about that. That said, we hope that within July, we actually start to like reach out to private entities that we hope would agree to also host a bike station for the bike share program. For example, the Box Factory or not Old Bend, I'm talking too much about open. The old mill. We will, as soon we have the bikes, we will have local bike shops do the inspect them all to make sure that they're in good order if they need little maintenance and tuning. We also hope that in July already we can do the rebranding. So we really want to get these bikes completely ready so that in the moment we get, and the system ready, so that in the moment we get the controllers, we really just need to plug them in and can get the bikes on the street. We also hope that we can actually schedule for July and August a soft launch of the program. And what we mean with soft launch is we know we won't have the bikes on the street, but we can start talking about it, communicating it, selling the plans, and make sure that people actually know, look, this is coming. We are just waiting for the bikes. Involve the community in that process and really get the word out. Make sure that we have the right pricing structure, that that's something that can become an alternative for transportation for people and is affordable or free for certain groups of the population, and really start talking about that. So as much as I'd hope to come to you in June to tell you, hey, we're going to be ready on July 15th, there were a couple delays that we did not foresee, that I think nobody foresaw, like having, like, not be able to get controllers because the manufacturer can't get chips. It's kind of the same like trying to get wood, right? Like everybody knows, we go to Home Depot right now with 2x4 is like 3 times what it was last year. So I can think those are the things. And I also believe that the city of Bend is still working on the IIG with ODOT for some of the funds that are included to fund this as well, which hopefully goes to city council by the end of July. I believe around July 25th is what we're hoping right now. And so as soon we have all that, I think we have a much better timeline to launch. But again, the exciting thing is that this gives us, I think originally we had hoped to get it on the ground and also take advantage of the summer months to get some revenue in there. Now, not knowing that we can do that, it's really not affecting our ability to operate the program, but it gives us much more time and breathing room to really make it an equity-based program in the long run. And I think that's an exciting opportunity, and we're happy about that. And if you have any questions, I take them now, and I can share anything I know.
Any questions? Phil?
I don't fully understand all the reasons why the program had to wind down in 2020, in the initial go round. But are there things that we learned between 2016 and 2020 that are going to make the operation of the program substantially better? This second go around, or are there key lessons learned that are going to be helpful, or were some of the challenges unrelated to how well the program operated?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think going more into the history would probably be Casey Burke would be much better equipped to answer that because he operated it actively. But I will share with you what I've learned from reviewing it and talking about it with Casey a lot. And so the main reason that it shut down was had not so much to do with the program as that Zexter, the operator, did not have enough cushion and backup to make it through COVID. And so they just shut down from one day after the other, wherever they operated, and gave nobody notice. They were just gone overnight. So that's one. What we have learned from that is that the program was actually positioned to do very well. It had grown through 2018, 19 kind of plateaued, and it plateaued because the next step needed was to increase the footprint. The next step needed was to really expand, right? So you can, with a bike share program, you need a certain amount of density and bikes that you can grow. And so I think that was a limiting factor a little bit to give a damper in 2019. I also think that the next step, and Casey can correct me up and maybe follow up with an email on that if I say something that is not completely accurate. I think the program in the past wasn't focused wasn't focused so much to fill a gap in transportation or in transit to reach a certain group of the population or the community in Bend, something you pointed out in one of the meetings in the past. And I think that's something we want to do different. The other thing is that what we've learned, which is why we chose or why we opted to go the route through Cascade Mobility, which is funded through ODOT through an innovation grant, is that a private like operating program will run until they make money, right? If they don't make money, they'll disappear and they're gone. And so even if it's good, but if it is not feasible for them, they're just gonna be gone, right? There's no benefit in it for them. The hope through this program with Cascade Mobility, and I think we have learned all together, like ODOT and like the people that help with the bike share there and Cascade Mobility, just through this planning process for Bend, has been that there's a really great way of doing that to say, look, we can initiate a statewide program that can share resources, can share costs, and now actually takes a little bit of that financial burden of a small municipality like Bend to operate a program. And that can be, puts much more security into the system. What we also have done, I think what we've learned is that we need to have, although we might only start with 55 bikes on the street, we want to have those 100 bikes so that if we see we need them, we can deploy them right away to expand and grow the program to reach those areas that we needed to expand. And I think the third part, if that was three, the third element that we have learned, doing it as part of this urban mobility framework that I mentioned is really important because that can help us to really say, how do we get to the next level, right? What do we really need to have to make sure that what happened in the past doesn't happen? We feel that we can get a lot of data from those 4.5, 5 years that the program operated that gives us enough info and baseline to say, we can do this. This can be successful because we see how many riderships we did. And I think then for us to succeed is to not set our goals and our evaluation metrics at a sky high level that we can't reach. And I think that's something you pointed out in a way, maybe not directly in the previous meeting. They said, look, if you're just going after tourists, our goal needs to be up here, right? We need this many rates, it creates this much revenue. Now that we shifted this more really towards an equity-based program, it's more like, hey, we want the program. Whether we get 150 rides a month or 250 rides a month, we can do that because we're setting this up to success, for success in the long run, not just in July or August. And I think that's what we've learned from reviewing the program, that it went up and down through the season, but how do we reach people outside the season, right? There's no reason to take the bikes off the street in November if the weather is great, because Dexter bikes were out all year long, they just didn't get the ridership. But with the right approach, we might actually be able to increase that. And with a partnership with CET in the long run, what's coming, the mobility hubs and all that, there's a lot of opportunity to really make it a great program.
Thank you. Toby, I think you kind of half answered my question, which was, what is Cascade Mobility or Cascadia Mobility?
Yeah.
And so it's a public agency, is that correct?
Not exactly. So let me explain it a little bit more. So
Thank you.
Cascade Mobility is a nonprofit organization that was founded out of Fourth Mobility, which is a Portland-based nonprofit organization, and currently the fiscal sponsor for Cascade Mobility. They were the recipient of an innovation grant from ODOT with the goal to develop a statewide bike share and micromobility program. So the idea from ODOT really was, in my understanding of it, to create a micromobility platform that's starting with bike share that can enable small municipalities to start a program without having to find a private operator and to really share the resources for that. So in example, to put that more in context, that mobility cloud platform that we use for people to rent the bike and that controls the bikes, right, that communicates, Cascade Mobility will have that. And they will now have the opportunity to share that platform with any other municipality that jumps on board. So it's not that we have to contract individually with a provider, they will do that. And by doing that, it's as easy as saying, hey, we're starting in Bend with this in 2021, but if Corvallis wants to do this in 2022, they're just going to be added as a sub-location, need to get their bikes, and they're off and going. And so the person that can rent a bike in Bend can use the same platform to rent it somewhere else. So very similar to a parking app that you can use in Bend, but also in Portland, right? And so they opted to do it with a nonprofit model, not necessarily because they don't want to make money with it, but just because they feel that's easier to handle for their partners in the future and to actually fund the program through sponsorships as well, which is always needed.
That's great. I am trying to extend the life of my very, very old cell phone. And so anything that is reducing the number of apps that might be downloaded for me is an advantage. Oh, I had another question. So Toby, do these bikes, will they have to be dropped off at one of the docking stations?
Yep. So in the beginning, it will be a docked system. That's what we have used in the past. The goal is that we can in the future can expand the program to be a dockless system. But then be very clear that we are still probably creating a specific drop-off locations so that we are still maintaining that. And that to really ease into that, and that we have enough time to do the legal groundwork, to have the right policies and the right protections for everybody. But we know that a bike share program really takes off and has much more opportunity to grow when it becomes a dockless system.
How many docks will we start with?
So we are starting with the 6 docks that we have, that we inherited from Zexter, and they will be remodeled slightly to actually fit these bikes that we're getting. That's part of this program and a very low-cost way of doing that. And so we'll be deploying them in different locations with the flexibility that we could move them, right? That if we learn that we might find a better location, we can do that. There's also no reason for us to not expand on that. If, for example, a private entity wants to build their own dock and builds that pair specifications to fit the locks for the bikes, they could do that. And that would be a great way to expand the location stations, but that needs to always also balance how many bikes we have available. Because if we have 20 stations, but only have 2 bikes in each station, that's not necessarily going to make it very popular for people.
Thank you. Any other questions for Toby?
I have a quick one.
Sure.
Toby, the system that was in place from 2016 to 2020, there was some private funding, that was put into that system to help, cover some of the operational costs and so on. Will Cascade Mobility, will there be an opportunity for private funding to come into this system? And if so, is that something that would be coordinated through Cascade Mobility, or will that be something that you and the other local partners will work, try to find, that type of an opportunity or opportunities?
Yep, great question. So yes, and yes. So we already have a local partner that has committed to covering part of the operational cost for 2021 that I can't mention yet, but it's there. And we also received, just since we did the early press release for this, Cascade Mobility has received multiple emails from private companies in Bend that have sponsored the program before and are interested in sponsoring the program in the future. So that's definitely something that's already on deck and will happen. As for how we're handling it, we are really seeing this as being looking at Cascade Mobility as the operator, where they will be the ones that go after some of the sponsorships to make that happen. And I think OSU and the city of Bend can assist with that, but I think that we choose Cascade Mobility because our resources and bandwidth to operate a program, like from let's say from the transportation mobility department, we just don't have the bandwidth to do that, right? We need somebody to really be that, because I'm getting already enough phone calls at night for like parking issues. I can't go around and like move bikes around. So I think this more like as like to put some humor into that. But so Cascade Mobility will pursue those sponsorships to make sure that the program is sustainable and can recover some of the costs that we might not be able to recover through ridership.
Thank you. Any other questions for Toby? All right. Well, Toby is the parking manager for the city of Bend. So you can always track him down at the City of Bend website, or you can find him through any of your city councilors. And I will just say thank you so much, Toby. I think we are all excited to have this program back up and running as soon as possible. Yeah, great. Thanks again.
Thanks, everybody.
Uh-huh. And that brings us to item number 7 on our agenda. As I mentioned, this is also an overview informational item. I myself have been hearing and learning about this North Corridor project literally for years. And every time I think about it, every time anybody asks me about it, I realize there's more that I don't know, and I always seem to have questions myself. So again, this seemed like a good opportunity to, in particular, update the new members of this policy board. So we've got Bob Townsend, who of course is a member of the MPO, who's going to talk to us about not just that North Corridor project, but updates on ODOT projects throughout the region. Bob, want to take it away?
Thank you. Hovey, can I share my screen?
Tyler's
Yeah,
got
I'll stop
that.
sharing and then you can go, Bob.
Okay,
And I
thank you.
can.
There you go.
see.
Okay,
Make
perfect.
it- You should be able to share it now.
How's that look?
Looks great.
Okay. So thanks, Councilor Campbell. I'm going to cover the North Corridor, but some other projects within the MPO, and then also some projects right on the edge. And so I'll pause after each project just in case anybody has any specific questions about those. The first one, and this is, I think I was on the schedule to talk back in April originally before we ran long on a couple agenda items, but this is the Parkway paving project. That the paving's done now. We're just doing a few bridge deck rehabs and finishing out some ADA ramps. So it's soon to be done here, probably the first or second weekend in July. There may be a little bit of punch list work beyond, but this was the paving project on the Parkway that's just about complete there. And so not a lot of schedule updates since we're ramping down here. Any questions on that project? Okay. Next project within the MPO on the east end of town, which certainly has been a topic here, is we've had a few changes. Deschutes County has contributed $500,000 to this project as well, but this is the Ward Hamby roundabout on the east end of Bend, and it should be going to bid here in a couple months. We're just finishing the right-of-way process, and so construction will occur later this fall through the winter, and probably with the goal of being open by Memorial Day next year. We're just penciling out a few schedule details just to ensure that that's a reality, but all things are pointing in the right direction on this one, and certainly a high priority, the highest priority project in the region for ODOT. Our most significant intersection as it relates to severe injury and fatal crashes the last few years. And so we'll be really excited to get this one under construction, where we'll start seeing safety impacts just by having all the cones and barrels out there. Any questions on that one, Commissioner Chang?
What are the detours going to look like?
So we're not going to have extended detours. That's just not. I don't mean to make fun of the city of Bend and their detour allowance, but generally ODOT we need to maintain access. So there'll be some nights where there's closures and things like that, but for the most part, we're going to maintain access at that. And you can see from the picture a little bit that that the roundabout, 75% of the construction is going to be off system there, and then it'll be the tie-ins at the end that'll have some issues. But certainly Highway 20 will remain having one lane in each direction at all times. Some flagger control at night, and there'll be a few night closures of Ward and Hamby, but for the most part, no significant detour. Okay. The next project, another one that's been on the books for a long time here, is our 3rd Street improvements. And basically this is a multi-phase project. It's really 3rd Street at Empire, 3rd Street from Mervyn Samples to Greenwood, and then US 20 from Greenwood to Purcell, really 3 different projects. This project is focusing on Mervyn Samples to Greenwood. It's a new signal at Mervyn Samples. It's signal upgrades throughout the corridor, new sidewalk infill, replacement of all the ADA ramps that are substandard along the corridor, pedestrian crossing improvements, and then paving and drainage. So pretty significant work. It actually will be advertised here. I think it goes to advertisement next week. And it'll be a 4-week ad, and then we'll have bid results here in July. It also includes a crossing at 6th Street, or a pedestrian improvement under 6th Street on US 20 there that we just wanted to advance. The separate project that I think was on our agenda a couple months ago that we call 3rd Street to Purcell on US 20. Instead of having the pedestrian upgrade on that one, we wanted to get it out there in advance. So it does have a little bit of work down there. Like I said, it'll go to construction later this year. It's going to be a full everything we can do to get it done by the end of 22. It may need to go into the spring of 23 a little bit. And then what I was calling phase 2 of this project is the Greenwood Avenue portion, and it'll go to construction once this one's done. And it includes, the phase 2 includes sidewalk and ADA upgrades on US 20 there, but no paving work, basically sidewalk, drainage, crossings, those type of things. Any questions about this project?
So Bob, are you saying that from 3rd Street to Purcell won't be beginning sooner than 2023?
We may have a little bit of overlap, but it's just hard to have 2 large contracts going at the same time. And we're going to be doing significant work at the intersection of Greenwood and 3rd. And so we don't want to start the other sidewalk improvements on Greenwood until we're out of that intersection, because we don't want to be stopping people every 2 blocks. And so we're working through that now. We think we can have a little bit of overlap and probably have some of the work start in the fall of 22, but we don't have enough details on that yet, how to coordinate. A lot of it's going to dependent on who's the contractor here in July that we select for the main project. And then once we know their schedule and when they're going to be working down there, we'll be able to adjust the phase 2 project accordingly.
Councilor Campbell, Bob did mention that the pedestrian crossing on Greenwood at 6th Street to get to Juniper, that is included in phase 1. And so that'll be in this first construction cycle, correct, Bob? That's
correct. Yeah.
So that's not going to be pushed out to 2023. So that'll be, that piece of Greenwood will be done.
Yeah, and some of the delay is it's 12 months just to acquire right of way and easements, which we're starting now on on the US 20 Greenwood portion. So it just takes time before we can go to bid even on that. But we're going to try to coordinate the schedule so that it's as tight as it can be.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. I don't imagine I need to tell you, Bob, that pedestrian accidents are what is on my mind today. There was literally, in the amount of time since we've discussed the agenda, someone had
Yeah.
just been killed then, and in the meantime, another person was hit last night. So, that is really what I am wondering. Are there any pieces, are there any improvements that we could possibly be getting done sooner? So that is great information about that crossing at 6th Street. Thank you for that. Specifically, Bob, I was wondering about lighting at some of these locations where we know pedestrians. Is there anything, maybe lighting, could it be accomplished sooner rather than later? I don't know, Bob, but that is where my heart is today. And
yeah, no, and certainly understandable. I think, like I said, we're going to try to expedite anything that we can out there. The issue is there's not one specific point. I mean, the 6th Street crossing certainly helps, but some of these are random in nature, and it's hard to know which area to prioritize. We've certainly, when we do have significant history or something, then we're going to advance that. But this Greenwood corridor is, as everyone knows from being out there with utilities in the middle of the sidewalk and things like that, it's not an easy one to coordinate to design with the amount of relocations that we need out there.
I do understand that. And then specifically, Bob, I was thinking about that Mervyn Samples location because it is so close to the homeless shelter. And that was one where I was wondering if maybe there's something like lighting that might be, or signs even.
Yeah, I think one of the things we'll see from the start, it's 18 months of construction, from Mervyn Samples to Greenwood.
Right.
And certainly things will happen at different paces or at a different pace. But once the contractor's on board, the amount of cones, signing, barrels, barricades that are out there will certainly help lower speeds and awareness. And then we'll be certainly highlighting what crossings we are going to use, because some of them are going to be closed temporarily and things like that. So even though some of the signal and the lights won't be in at Mervyn Samples for at least 6 months, probably, there will be enough activity out there that it'll hopefully improve some of the safety considerations.
6 months probably is a lot better than 2023.
Yeah, I mean, it's all dependent. There's a lot of drainage work that's going to be done underneath, and some of it, with the shortages, even Toby talked about for chips, we're seeing that in illumination poles and other things. So it's going to be a little bit of a struggle out there that, some of it's going to get delayed longer than we anticipate, but we're hoping that, and then we understand we're going to pay a premium for some of it to get done early, because that's what we need.
Thank you so much, Bob. Any other questions on this specific project?
Okay.
I don't see
the next one, the US 20 Deschutes River Bridge to Roble Road. This is basically Tumalo to Cooley. Now we've changed the name a little bit just because of what we're including, but this is what was in the STIP recently before we're making the changes. But this is a partner project with Deschutes County again, that they're contributing significant funds towards the roundabout at Tumalo. But basically it includes a roundabout at Tumalo, a roundabout at Old Bend Redmond Highway, repaving between Tumalo and Cooley, and then a multi-use trail between Cooley, and this says Roble. It should actually be Cooley and Old Bend Redmond. The Cooley to Roble trail will be done under the Bend North Corridor project that I'll talk about in a little bit. This also includes trail undercrossing at Tumalo as well. And so we were able to, with some county funds from some COVID funding and then some additional funds ODOT was able to gather. Now we're able to fund the undercrossing, which we had removed from the project. And so what will happen is we're adding it in quickly here. What'll probably happen is we'll build the undercrossing now. We just won't have the trail through it for another year because the trail requires additional right of way to make the connection. But at least the undercrossing will be there under this project, so we won't be impacting Highway 20 traffic. It's slated for construction next year. It's going to bid, I think, in January of 22. It's going to be a tight time frame on construction, but we really call this phase 1 of the North Corridor. We want these 2 roundabouts in prior to starting work on the North Corridor roundabouts, just because it'll aid in slowing speeds down and giving alternate access for people coming in on Old Bend Redmond Highway. And plus, we live over there, and I'm soon to have a second driver, and my wife's been harassing me about the Old Bend Redmond roundabout for years now. So I always try to make that one a priority for me. Like I said, couple risk areas. We still don't have final approval for the roundabouts from the Mobility Advisory Group. I know Commissioner Chang's been helping on that, and Tyler and others, and Eric King and Mayor Russell have been in on those conversations as well. So we're working through those details. We're confident we're going to get there. It's just more time and effort on our end. But certainly this is a really good project for the 20 corridor, and it leads into the North Corridor project then as well. Any questions on this one? Okay. And then, like I said, the Bend North Corridor project, I'm going to go into a little more detail on this one. Most of you know this is where House Bill 2017 earmarked $50 million of funding. We received another $60 million in a federal infra grant, approximately a little more than 60 actually. And then with contributions from Deschutes County, the city of Bend, our total pot's around 135 million, and we're still trying to grow it a little bit, just like everything. I think our estimate for the work originally was about 125 to 130 million. Now it's around 150 million, just with right-of-way costs going up and construction costs. So we're still working on the balance of that. Really, the primary things, I just wanted to zoom in a little bit, and I'm happy to answer questions here or offline if you really want to get into specifics. These are up on the Bend North Corridor website. If you just Google Bend North Corridor ODOT project, you can get all these exhibits as well. But this is the proposal right now for the Highway 97 section, and it's really not going to change again. We're pursuing a design build contract, and so basically this is what we're presenting the design builder. There's going to be some nuances to it, but basically Highway 97 is going to be parallel to the railroad up there. We've acquired some of the property already and are finalizing other property day by day. We're going through that process. Basically, like I said, 97 is going to be over by the railroad. On each end, there's some connection points. Highway 97 will go up and over Cooley. At the north end, Cooley, the city street will not be grade separated from the railroad, but we are pursuing a silent crossing with BNSF so that they don't have to toot the horn every time they go through there, which will certainly be a benefit to the community, and hearing that, 13 or 14 times a day. On the south end of that, where it gets to Empire, it's a little confusing there from the exhibits. Basically, if you're on existing 97 and you're heading north to Redmond, you won't notice much difference. You'll be curving off to the east a little bit, but the parkway will just look like it's extended. If you want to go to the mall area, you'll take an exit and do a flyover. There's some little variations on how that ramp looks, but you'll still be able to connect with 3rd Street or get to the Sisters flyover ramp off the parkway, just like you do now. There'll be one little extra merge movement, but nothing significant. The other detail that people don't see a lot when they're looking at it is 3rd Street in front of the mall will connect straight through to 3rd Street in front of, our offices, the DMV office and Empire. It'll just look like it has a big median in the middle. Right now, if you're heading north on 3rd Street, your only option is to take the flyover ramp and go out towards Sisters. But now you'll actually be able to connect through to 3rd Street as well. So that's a pretty significant connection point there. Some of the other red lines that you see on the ramp or on the map are the multi-use paths and trying to connect a low stress network through the area up there. So that's what the existing call outs. And then certainly as we're closing off connections over to that industrial area, we'll be making a new Nels Anderson Road to connect back into there. And certainly you can see some of the properties that we're acquiring based on where the new roadways go. Any questions on this 97 part? The other point here to make is if you're in the mall area now and you want to head southbound at Roble, there'll be an on-ramp to 97. So you'll be able to make that connection without going back down to Empire like you have to do today. On the US 20 side, the main improvements are certainly there's going to be a lot of widening. There's if you're going to Tumalo, that there's 2 lanes heading out there, but inbound there's only 1 lane. We're going to be making that 2 lanes basically from Old Bend Redmond all the way into Roble. Eventually it'll be a 4-lane section here, and so that's part of this work. But the main work is a roundabout, dual lane roundabouts at Roble and US 20, and dual lane roundabouts at Cooley and US 20. We're going to be making some improvements at Jameson, a fire emergency access for the fire station, as well as the police department there to access US 20, multi-use path between Roble and Cooley, like I said. And certainly, depending on the status of the library development, I know there's a lot of discussion there, but we have been working with them preliminary if they do go in there, what the 3rd connection or the 4th leg of connection looks like at Roble, multi-use path and things like that. We're just not showing those now until their plans are a little more firm. Any questions on the US 20?
Bob, I'm sorry, but would you go back over to the North Corridor? Okay, so Cooley is going under Highway 97,
Correct.
but over the railroad tracks.
Or it's going to be at the same at grade as the railroad as it is now.
Right. Yeah, that's right. I shouldn't describe it as over. Thank you. And then, so what is the access from Cooley, particularly from the east, on to Highway 97?
Yeah, so, and I clipped it a little bit as I'm noticing now, but if you're over here in the Boyd Acres on Cooley and you're wanting to head south on 97, you'd go under the bridge, take a left at the light, and then merge on to this new ramp here at Roble. If you want to head north to Redmond, you'll go, same light will exist. I mean, it'll be modified because it won't be as wide up there, but you'll take a right, and then the northbound on-ramp goes underneath Highway 97 here and merges onto 97. Basically, there's 2 bridges here on 97, and so you would go underneath. Likewise, anybody on 3rd Street heading north is they go through the light, go under 97, and then there's a ramp merge there to the north.
So right there, that intersection we're looking at there on the left top picture, that is the intersection of Cooley and what will be the new 97.
So this is right here is Cooley and 3rd Street or 97 right now. It will not really change
Okay.
substantially. I mean, we probably don't need 6 lanes out there, maybe 4 or 5, but basically it'll stay the same. And in the end, it'll just become the city's 3rd Street, right? I mean, we'll maintain ownership for now until we work out a transfer, but technically it'll just be 3rd Street. And then we'll have ramps and right to the north of this. It doesn't look a lot different than it does today.
finally have it. I was looking at this green line thinking that was the railroad tracks.
No,
That-
this is all the new stuff.
Got it.
here.
That's the new alignment for
Yeah.
Highway 97. And then all of that you were just telling me about with the intersections, that's 3rd Street.
Correct. Yeah.
So that was going to be my next question. So the connector point where those two things merge, where the new 97 and 3rd Street, which is our current 97, where those are coming together is now at Cooley instead of further north. Is that right?
No, I mean, it's just north of Cooley. It's just off the diagram here that I didn't include. And it's up. I would try to load it on the web, but it takes 10 minutes now.
No, don't
But
worry.
on the web page, the exhibit has it. Basically, the connection is just to the north of Cooley, right? You know, where the Space Age is, and or the gas station up there, and some of those commercial buildings is really, that's where the connection point is. But it's just merging off of the existing Highway 97.
Okay. And Bob, I did have my most recent question was about how on earth are we getting people around all of this construction? I recently heard 18th Street. Is that right?
So we will take advantage of closing Cooley for a few windows here, because it is a city street, and you guys do have some closure guidelines that are more flexible than ours. But Highway 97 will not be, and it'll have to maintain 2 lanes most of the time. There's just no alternative routes. We'll look to impact the area off peak months. So basically from September to May, not during the May to September peak tourist season. So it's going to be complex. Certainly there's going to be impacts and more delays up there than we have now, but we won't be detouring 97 or Highway 20. Our goal is to have the stuff on Highway 20 done first, so that people can kind of use that as an alternative route if they choose to. But Highway 97 will remain in its location without rerouting. Now, when you close Cooley at times, certainly 18th Street and Empire are going to be impacted more. Likewise, when we close Cooley to the north here, at certain times, there's going to be more people using the Roble and Cooley connections on Highway 20, but since they'll have roundabouts, they'll actually operate a lot better. So some of those impacts won't be as bad.
I see that Mike Riley has a question.
Oh.
Thanks, Councilor Campbell. Bob, I was curious if you can go to the Highway 20. How are pedestrians going to be crossing those roundabouts, especially people who are kind of moving from east to west or west to east? And I know you don't have all the answers there for the one at Roble, but I guess in particular at Bend Redmond Highway.
So these are going to be dual lane roundabouts. So if you've seen the new city roundabout at 27th and Butler Market that has the push button pedestrian crossings, all of our crossings will have the same benefit, as you'll push the button and traffic will be required to stop for pedestrian movements. I don't want to say it's an absolute, but it's ODOT standard whenever there's dual lane roundabouts. Different than our single lane roundabouts is to have the push button control pedestrian crossings.
And that has like some set of flashing lights. I mean, I've been through there, but I've been driving, so I haven't paid.
Yeah, correct. It's the normal, similar to the rapid flashing beacons. They're a little different, but you push the button and lights go off flashing everywhere, notifying the driving or the motorist to stop and yield to the pedestrians.
And that's considered, but in Tumalo, you're going to have an undercrossing.
Yeah, in Tumalo though, we're going to have both, because we can't just close. People are allowed to cross at highway intersection points, and so we'll have the flashing beacons as well as an undercrossing as well. The undercrossing at Tumalo is actually towards Sisters, 0.3 of a mile or so, that kind of fits in line with the network there.
Uh-huh. Were undercrossings explored for either of these as an option? It just seems like the speeds are, pretty significant when people are traveling on a highway versus.
Yeah, the difference is the pedestrian undercrossings at Tumalo is around 2.5 million, and we have the advantage of we're going up in grade and there's a lot of fill there, so it's cheaper. These would be $5 million range and then require a lot of additional. The benefit of the roundabouts is that, right now it's a 55-mile-an-hour zone. It'll probably go to a 35-mile-an-hour we're done, and the roundabouts are designed for 15 to 20-mile-an-hour speeds through them. So it's going to be an urbanized corridor when we're done, and it's just not really feasible to have that many undercrossing or pedestrian overcrossings when you look at the slope and how far back you would have to go at this time.
And there's safety islands in the middle, right? And you
Correct. Yeah, there's pedestrian refuge islands in the middle. So they're only crossing 2 lanes of traffic at a time with a controlled push button and only looking one way, right? So they're not facing multiple directional impacts. So still a significant safety benefit. I mean, not the best, of course, but we feel pretty comfortable with the lower speeds and the improvements that are going to go out there, that the pedestrian crossings will be greatly benefited. And the other thing is the separated multi-use paths running parallel to Highway 20 are going to be a significant improvement out there. There's nothing now, right? And pedestrians are just walking on the shoulder.
And those are on the east and the west side?
It's just going to be let's say the east side for now. The west side will be dependent on when development goes in. So the example I was mentioning, if the library goes in, then we will include a multi-use path there. But for the other sections, we're kind of, we don't want to take more right of way than's needed, and before you see what the commercial development looks like.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent questions, Mike. Thank you for asking. Anybody else? Any questions right now for Bob? All right, Bob, go ahead.
Okay, so I was going to just tackle 2 more projects that they slightly border the MPO, and there's a little bit of overlap on this one, but there's significant safety improvements just within the immediate Bend area. The first one is US 97 Redmond to Bend Safety Corridor, and this is really phase 1 of about 4 projects probably, and this is going to go to bid here in the next couple of months, and it'll be done. Construction will go on this winter and spring. The high components of this one is we're starting to install median barrier between Bend and Redmond, and it'll just be done in segments because it's expensive and there's a lot of impacts to access points. But the first phase of the project includes about just over a mile of median barrier, basically from Deschutes Market Road interchange, where there's already some median barrier to the south towards Bend. And then when we complete the Bend North Corridor, we'll connect into that barrier. And basically we'll have a median barrier from, throughout the North Corridor project, and then to Deschutes Market Road, basically under this phase 1. J-turn construction, I just showed this exhibit because people wonder what it means. Certainly with the median barrier out there, there's a few private accesses along that wouldn't be able to take a left turn out. And so what we've tried to do is we don't want to have anybody go more than 2 or 3 miles of out of direction travel. So at the end of barrier segments, we'll be including these J-turns where basically they only have to turn across one direction of traffic. They go out into an area and it's a controlled U-turn, and then they stop before they turn back onto the highway. So we'll be making one of these under phase 1, and then each additional phase will have 1 or 2 of them just to minimize out of direction travel. Improvements, new striping, illumination at Quarry and 61st Street. We're building in decel lanes and other things. And so a really good phase 1 project, but it's our anticipation that every 2 years we'll be able to fund an additional phase until we have median barrier all the way between Redmond and Bend, which for those of you who've been around in the significant head-on crashes, it's basically 100% reduction in those. So, and we've had quite a few since 2015 during our analysis period. So I wanted to share about that one. And then the last one The last construction or capital improvement project I wanted to share on was the Bend to Lava Butte Multiuse Trail. This was funded by the Federal Lands Access Program, FLAP, with Western Federal Lands. And basically, it's been a planning project, and now we have design and construction funds. And this is basically for a trail from Bend to Lava Butte. We've done some public comment period, and there's quite a few opponents as well. And so it's going to be a significant political push to get this. We do see a lot of value in it. I'm going to be reaching out to both people from the city of Bend, Commissioner Chang, and so on, just trying to get our ducks in a row here as we tackle this issue. Certainly with homeless camp discussions and things like that, so people do have legitimate concerns about the multi-use path, who will maintain it, what we'll do around homeless camp issues on the trail itself and things like that. And a lot of questions to be answered, but it is it's a significant project for us, and certainly in our goals to have a multi-use path from Bend to La Pine. This is the first phase of that. We have planning dollars available for phase 2, which is from Lava Butte to the south as well. And so, we want to get this one going. And so we're looking at construction 2023, but like I said, there's a lot of moving pieces to this one. And I just want to share from a high level because certainly it is going to impact the city of Bend and the county, and we'll want to make sure our stakeholders or our jurisdictional stakeholders are satisfied with the process. Any questions on that one? There'll be more to come on that here in the next few months. And then the last one, I just wanted to cover some of the planning projects. I'm sure most of you have seen in the news about the Baker Knott Road Interchange Area Management Plan, and I think we even discussed it a little bit at this meeting. And just looking at, there's no construction funds identified, but these are planning projects as growth happens, and certainly the Baker Road interchange has been impacted, and that's what this planning project will look at. US 20 refinement plan. This is the Greenwood section that also includes, a look at transit and other things. So we're excited to get that one kicked off in a few months. Bend Mobility Hub feasibility study, US 97 Reed Market refinement plan, a couple others that have been on the certainly concerns for both the city of Bend and ODOT for a long time. And so we'll be kicking off planning projects for those. And I'm happy to answer questions I can. Rick Williams, one of our senior planners, is on the line too. And so he may be able to jump in if you guys do have any specific questions about any of those.
I don't specifically, but my hand's up because Greg Bryant's hand's up and only I can see it.
Okay.
So Greg, I think you might have a question about the trail that he was talking about.
About the multi-use trail. Is there going to be an underpass for the High Desert Museum so it's an easy on and off there?
So it will not include a vehicle under crossing at High Desert. That's a separate project that we're looking at. Right now, the proposal for the trail alignment is to be on the west side of the highway, basically from Lava Butte to around the High Desert, and then cross under the road and be on the east side connecting into Baker, where we think we can, have a trailhead and some parking long term. And so that's the plan right now, just to have a pedestrian undercrossing at that point.
So it's just going to be a bike and pedestrian at underpassing. Okay.
Correct. And I mean, one of the things in discussions is still the alignment of the trail, and why there's a lot of public interest in where it goes and what side. And our preferred route is the one I just mentioned, due to various environmental right-of-way impacts, the trailhead parking that I mentioned, and things like that. But certainly there is some fluidity on where that location would go. And if it was all the way on the east side, then would we have an undercrossing at the High Desert Museum or not? So there's still some moving pieces to that dialogue.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Any other questions? Or I think that's really it on the projects I wanted to cover. We do have some more coming up in the next few years, but certainly there'll be more time to share information on those.
Barb, you're muted.
If you're.
I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bob. I just wanted to tell everybody what a wealth of information you have and how generous you are with your time. If anybody's got questions for Bob, you can reach him directly or through the MPO. And he's always here for us to be able to ask questions, and we can always specifically add agenda items for projects if we would like more time for questions or to discuss. So thank you so much. One thing I have learned is a whole lot of public representation for ODOT falls to us. We are the elected officials that hear about these things, that are able to comment and bring forth representation from our communities. So thank you so much. We have just a minute or two if there's anybody that would like to speak for public comment.
Yeah, we have a couple new public members that we didn't introduce. Gary Bodden and Mike Riley talked earlier, but just so you know, those two were added to the meeting during our discussions.
Excellent.
No hands are
don't
raised.
see their hands up for any questions. So I will just say thank you, Gary and Mike and Greg. Always, we appreciate your involvement. The decisions that the MPO makes are so important, and really appreciate everyone's time. The next regular meeting, as of now, we're saying that yes, you will have a meeting on July 20th, starting at 11:30
At noon.
Sorry.
Yeah.
We decided we're going to move it back to noon. So that meeting will be starting at noon. If you have comments about whether to have that meeting at all, please do reach out to myself or Hovey or Tyler, and I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll move that we adjourn the June 15th MPO meeting.
Thank you, Phil. With that, I think I can say that this meeting of the Bend MPO is adjourned. Thank you again, everybody. Your time is so valuable here, and I know how busy everyone is. I just really appreciate it.
Thank you.